That morning began with a chilling jolt, because in just a few seconds, a legitimate check turned into an excuse for an entire bank lobby to turn and question a woman no one truly knew. Lauren Carter stood still among the crowd, unaware that her simple deposit errand was about to ignite a chain reaction that would pull an entire city into it. Early sunlight spilled through the large glass windows of Brookside Community Bank, blending with the scent of polished wood and the soft clicking of receipt printers. Lauren stepped inside, her soft curls falling over her shoulders, dressed simply in a black tank top, white shorts, and sneakers. The outfit of someone on a day off, not of a federal finance PhD or a senior investigative agent. But that was her choice one day, without meetings, without pressure, with only one task ahead: depositing a check worth $287,400, the final portion of the compensation fund her father had fought years to secure before he passed away. She turned the envelope gently in her hand, brushing her fingers along the edge of the paper as a deep ache spread through her chest. This was more than money. It was a legacy, a testament to her father's lifetime of service to the community. Pride rose quietly within her, overshadowing the exhaustion from months of non-stop investigations. Today her plan was simple, so simple it felt like a relief finish. The deposit, go home to her mother, have lunch, and finally rest. The teller counters were still busy, an elderly man counting coins one by one, a young mother soothing a crying baby. When Lauren stepped forward, teller Emily Santos looked up with a polite smile, though her eyes flickered with hesitation the moment she saw the amount on the check. Lauren was used to that look, the subtle doubt born from the contrast between her casual appearance and the large sum of money she carried. She kept her smile, handed over her ID, and waited. But behind the counterbank manager, Dana Whitmore had been watching for a while, a woman in her early 40s, always in sharp, tailored suits, and carrying the air of manufactured authority that comes from glass offices and shallow power. When she saw the check in Emily's hand, Dana's eyes narrowed not with professional caution, but with bias. She walked toward the counter, her high heels clicking coldly against the white marble floor as she leaned toward Lauren, her gaze sweeping from head to toe before stopping at the natural curls of Lauren's hair. In that moment, Lauren felt a chill crawl down her spine. She had seen that look countless times in civil rights investigations, the look of someone who believed they could judge a person by skin tone or clothing alone. She kept calm, though a quiet alarm tightened in her stomach. Where did this money come from? Dana asked, her voice sweet, with a blade hidden beneath it. From the Federal Whistleblower Fund, Lauren replied evenly. I am depositing it into the community center account named after my father. Dana ignored the explanation. She turned to Emily and spoke each word slowly, loudly enough for nearby customers to hear. Verify everything. This check looks suspicious. Eyes began turning toward Lauren from the line behind her, curious, doubtful. A few people glanced at her sneakers, then back at the check, as if they had just witnessed a contradiction that should not exist. Lauren inhaled deeply, reminding herself she was one step away from being done. Just a little patience. But things shifted faster than she expected. Dana stepped back, grabbed her phone, and walked into her glass office. Through the clear door, Lauren saw her lips forming the words, "Suspicious need assistance immediately." A cold heaviness spread from Lauren's neck down her shoulders. She knew this was no longer about banking procedure. This was prejudice, taking shape a storm, waiting to rip through logic. She tightened her grip on the envelope. If they knew who she really was, if they knew her true identity could change the entire room with a single badge reveal. But no, she reminded herself. The truth sometimes needed the right moment to surface, and that moment was not now. At the front doors of the bank, quick footsteps echoed. The air thickened. Several customers turned in surprise. Lauren turned as well, and her heart skipped. 2 police officers entered carrying the posture of men convinced they were walking into a crime scene. From inside her office, Dana emerged with a thin, triumphant smile. She motioned toward Lauren with a slight nod, small but dripping with intention. A cold rush climbed Lauren's spine. She understood. Everything had officially begun. And no one in that room had any idea they had just targeted the wrong woman. Very wrong. The 2 police officers walked straight into the bank lobby as if they already knew exactly where the criminal was supposed to be standing. Officer Craig Dalton led the way, broad-shouldered eyes carved with impatience. Ben Kramer followed close behind, younger, but carrying a sharper, colder stare, the kind that treated anyone in front of him as guilty by default. From the moment they appeared, the quiet murmurs filling the room were swallowed by a suffocating tension. Lauren remained still, but inside her heartbeat pounded like a drum, fast and heavy. She knew exactly what was about to happen, no intuition needed. All she had to do was look at Dana Whitmore at that small nod, that half-smile that looked like someone who had just completed a secret obligation, and Lauren understood that this morning had already veered into darkness. "Ma'am, step away from the counter." Right now, Dalton ordered, his voice low and sharp, his eyes never asking, never assessing, only judging. He stood less than half a meter from her, breathing directly into her face, as if to assert absolute authority. Lauren kept her back straight. "I am just making a deposit. All my documents are valid. You are under investigation for fraud." Kramer cut in his voice, so cold and sharp that a little girl standing beside her mother in the line burst into frightened tears. "Do not make this harder than it needs to be." Emily Santos watched the scene unfold, her face turning pale. She had seen Lauren's documents, verified her signature, sensed the calm in every word she spoke. But now Emily could only stand behind the glass, her hands clenched so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Something inside her screamed that this was a mistake, a serious one. Lauren looked directly at Dalton. "I am cooperating, but you have no reason to—" The sound of handcuffs snapped through the air, a metallic crack like ice breaking. Dalton did not wait for her to finish. He grabbed her wrist and twisted it sharply behind her back. A sharp pain like an electric shock shot down her arm, making her buckle for a split second. People around them froze. A woman covered her mouth, 2 young men pulled out their phones to record, and elderly. Walter Jefferson frowned and shook his head. "Do not resist," Dalton barked, though he was the only one using force. Lauren did not move. She kept her voice steady. "I am standing still. You are using excessive force on someone who is not resisting." Kramer stepped in close behind her like a threatening shadow. "Excuses. People like you always say things like that." The words hit the air like a gavel striking stone, exposing a layer of prejudice no one bothered to hide. Lauren clenched her jaw. She could not fight back. She could not show anger. She could not care about dignity. All she could do was observe every detail, memorize every movement, every expression, every glance like a human recorder built for moments exactly like this. "Stop!" Walter's voice cut through the room, not loud but firm. He stood near the entrance holding his phone high. "I am recording." That woman did nothing wrong. Dalton turned anger flashing across his face. Old man put the phone down? No, Walter said clearly. I have lived more than 70 years. I know exactly what it looks like when someone is being treated unfairly. The bank lobby rippled with murmurs, a wave of rising outrage, though no one dared step forward. From inside her glass office, Dana watched with her arms crossed, her lips curled in satisfaction. She seemed utterly convinced she had done the right thing, that she was protecting the bank from some imagined threat. Lauren was pulled upright and spun toward the door. The cuffs tightened so harshly that blood slowed beneath her skin. Every step she took was a cut to her pride, a wound she knew would not heal easily. But what hurt most was not her wrists or her shoulders. It was the eyes on her. Judging eyes, confused eyes, distant eyes, and a few guilty ones from people too afraid to speak. When the glass doors slid open, the cold morning wind rushed in. A beam of sunlight hit her eyes, making her squint. Several phones outside were already pointed toward her, strangers recording videos that would spread rumors that would ignite like dry fields catching flame. Dalton leaned close to her ear, his breath heavy as he whispered, "Let us see how long you stay calm." But Lauren only tightened her grip against the cuffs, took a deep breath, and in that moment her eyes sharpened. A single thought rose inside her, cold and clear as a blade. They have no idea who they just arrested, and the wave that is coming will be far bigger than anything they can imagine. The fury had not surfaced yet, but it was coming, inevitable and unstoppable. They shoved Lauren into the back of the patrol car, as if tossing aside something that had misbehaved, and the door slammed shut with such force that the impact rattled through her chest. The scorching smell of heated vinyl mixed with old metal and the lingering dampness of countless detainees filled the small compartment, forcing Lauren to turn her face away. The cuffs dug into her wrists like needles, but that pain was nothing compared to the fire burning at the center of her mind, not the fire of impulse, but the slow, controlled blaze of someone who had seen injustice too many times and learned exactly how to strike back when the moment came. Ben Kramer sat in the passenger seat and glanced back at her through the metal screen. His eyes scanned her with triumph, as if he had finally brought down a long-hunted target. A con artist trying to act calm, he sneered. Classic. He let out a short, harsh laugh, dry and venomous. Craig Dalton started the engine. Just bring her in. Another win for us today. The words slipped out casually, but they revealed an entire system where power was treated like a toy. Through the window, Lauren could still see faces pressed against the bank glass. Walter Jefferson remained at the doorway, holding his phone, high, his gaze unshaken. That look warmed a small corner of Lauren's heart. She was not alone, but the truth was that most of the other faces had already turned away, and every turn back reminded her why she chose this path in the first place. The car rolled forward. The blare of a bus horn nearby, the squeal of brakes, the whistle of wind leaking through the door seals, all blended into a sharp, chaotic soundtrack. Lauren closed her eyes for a few seconds, not out of fear, but to focus. She began recording it all the exact moment they left the bank. The patrol car's license plate, the positions of traffic cameras at the intersection, the two witnesses filming from the sidewalk. Every detail became data. Every piece of data became evidence. That was the reflex of an agent, a reflex that never switched off. When the car turned past the second intersection, Kramer caught Lauren's reflection in the rearview mirror. He smirked. Do not think your little legal tricks will work here. We have seen hundreds of people try that act. Lauren opened her eyes. Her voice was low, steady, and without a tremor. I am not acting. Right. You are committing a crime. Dalton snapped, irritation dripping from his tone. So, be smart and stay quiet. Lauren said nothing. Their words were not aimed at her actions. They were aimed at her existence. And silence right now was strategy, not submission. When the car stopped at a red light, Lauren looked outside. A young boy stood on the sidewalk holding a small dog, watching the officers with the awe of someone who believed in uniforms and heroes. The sight hit Lauren like a pulse of cold emotion. She had once looked at people in uniform the same way. Her father had once told her, believe in justice even when it does not look the way you expect. She wondered what he would think if he could see this moment. But Lauren pushed that thought away. She knew this pain was not hers alone. It was the echo of hundreds, thousands of stories her father had fought his whole life to change. The light turned green. The car lurched forward, jolting violently as it hit a pothole. Lauren's wrist slammed against the metal bar behind the front seat, sending a hot sting through her arm. But she did not make a sound. She had to stay in control. Fear was what they wanted. Calm was what they could not stand. Kramer switched on the radio, trying to fill the suffocating air. He spoke loudly to Dalton, making sure Lauren heard every word. She thinks she is clever, but everyone breaks in the interrogation room. Lauren tilted her head slightly, her voice soft as breath, yet sharp enough to slice through their confidence. You really do not know who I am, but you will very soon. Both officers fell silent for a brief second. Then Dalton burst out laughing, a loud, empty laugh meant to smother an unease he had not yet admitted to himself. Lauren stared up at the car's ceiling. She was not the strongest person in that patrol car, but she was without any doubt the most dangerous. Not because of fists, not because of shouting, because of the truth she carried, and the power she had not yet revealed. As the Northwood police station appeared at the end of the street, sunlight swept across Lauren's face, lighting up her eyes with a new kind of fire, the fire of someone who has been dragged to the lowest point, and therefore has nothing left to hold back. And they, Dalton Kramer and whoever stood behind them, still had no idea that the storm they had just unleashed would swallow them faster than anyone could imagine. The patrol car stopped at the side entrance of the Northwood police station, its tires grinding across the concrete with a cold scraping sound that cut through the air like a blade. Dalton opened the back door and practically yanked Lauren out. Sunlight stretched across the ground in long, sharp lines, highlighting her wrists swollen and red from the cuffs. But instead of collapsing, Lauren stood straight, her spine firm like steel, and for a split second, confusion flickered in Kramer's eyes. They expected fear. Instead, they were looking at a storm waiting to break. As they walked into the booking area, Lauren was immediately swallowed by the heavy atmosphere of gray walls, harsh neon lights, and the stale mixture of sweat paperwork and long accumulated disdain. At the front desk sat Sergeant Miller, a middle-aged man with a heavy stomach and irritable eyes that were always red as if he never slept. He glanced at Lauren briefly, then kept typing. But when Dalton delivered the familiar line, bank fraud resisting aggressive behavior, Miller finally looked up, studying Lauren longer than usual. Not because he doubted his colleagues, but because something about this woman did not match the description. Lauren remained steady, though in her mind every word Dalton spoke etched itself like permanent ink. Fraud. resisting, aggressive. Each one a deliberate lie, the same tactic she had seen countless times in civil rights cases, crafting the story first, then forcing the victim into it through official documentation. "Bring her for fingerprinting," Miller said flatly. Kramer removed the cuffs, but instead of easing them off, he jerked them hard, leaving a dark purple ring around Lauren's wrists. She swallowed the pain, kept her breathing, even refusing to give them even a hairline crack in her composure. The fingerprint card slid beneath her sore fingertips, leaving cold black ink smudges behind. Every press against the paper felt like another cut into her pride, especially with two men standing over her building a wall of accusations with practiced ease, as if they had done this 100 times before. In the corner of the room, Officer Jordan Hale Younger, with clearer eyes, watched her closely. His face tightened with discomfort when he heard Dalton recite the report. The subject displayed threatening behavior, attempted to conceal documents, failed to comply. Jordan frowned. Lauren noticed and filed it away in her mind. Not everyone in the room had been swallowed by the system. She also stated the forged documents were very professionally done. Add that Kramer said, his voice dripping with malicious satisfaction. Lauren lifted her head. "I never said that." Dalton did not turn around. "Stay quiet. Everything you say will only make things worse." Jordan inhaled, gathering his courage. "Sergeant Miller, shouldn't we at least ask her about the report?" Dalton cut him off immediately. "Hale, you are far too green to teach anyone procedure." Jordan shut his mouth, but guilt burned clearly in his eyes. Lauren acknowledged him with the slightest glance, a silent thank you. Only, he noticed. When Miller began logging her belongings, he pulled out the envelope containing the check and its supplemental documents. A small slip dropped to the floor, a printed internal transaction code from the bank. The exact type Lauren had seen in the money laundering files she had been investigating. The numbers were so familiar, they made her heart skip. The sequence matched perfectly with the suspicious transactions she and Avery had been tracking for months. Lauren froze for a single brief moment, but inside her thoughts spun like a tornado. This was not random. This was not coincidence. Rivergate, or more accurately, Brookside Community Bank, had not only acted on bias, it sat in the middle of the dirty financial network she had been hunting. And Dana Whitmore, calling the police so fast, so aggressively now, had a much clearer reason than mere suspicion. This was the missing link. And this morning it had placed itself right in front of her. Miller picked up the slip without looking at it and tossed it into the tray. But Lauren had already memorized every digit, every faint symbol carved into her mind like steel. A door opened. Footsteps echoed. Assistant District Attorney Ethan Marsh entered posture, arrogant, wearing an expensive suit and a smile as cold as a blade. "Where is she?" he asked. "Our little fake victim?" Dalton pointed at Lauren. Marsh walked up to her, his eyes scanning her from head to toe with a dismissive smirk. "I hear you tried to trick the bank with a big check. That scam is ancient." He chuckled. Lauren did not respond. She stood unmoved, rooted like a marker stone in a storm, her eyes darkening with the understanding she had carried for years. The man standing in front of her was not just another official. He was one of those who could manipulate outcomes, twist directions, even bury the truth if it suited him. And he had just revealed the most important thing about himself, the unchecked confidence of someone who believed he was untouchable. Lauren locked her gaze on Marsh, her voice low, steady, every word, cutting with surgical precision. "You are making a mistake you will not have time to fix." For a fraction of a second, Marsh's smile faltered. Just a flicker. But Lauren caught it. She had just thrown the first spark of the coming storm straight into the heart of the man who deserved it most. And from that moment on, this fight was no longer hers alone. It was the fight that would drag everything hiding in this city's shadows into the light. The heavy metal door closed behind Lauren, sealing off the fading footsteps and the mocking laughter of people who thought they had already won. The holding room was cold, as if it had been built from the breath of those who had given up long before her. But Lauren was not someone who surrendered. She stood tall beside the steel bench, her wrists still throbbing, her mind sharper than ever. The pieces were falling into place, the slip that dropped from the envelope, Dana's unusually aggressive behavior, the suspiciously quick arrival of Assistant District Attorney Ethan Marsh. None of it was coincidence. It was the architecture of a machine operating in the shadows. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. The door opened. Chief Valerie Rowan stepped in, her expression tight, the look of someone who had just received news too heavy to swallow. She was the kind of woman who rarely showed emotion, yet Lauren saw fatigue mixed with caution at the corners of her eyes. Behind her, Marsh entered with the swagger of a victor posture, loose lips curled as if he were watching his favorite play unfold. The contrast between them was immediate. Rowan stood stiff but burdened. Marsh walked in relaxed, almost smug. Miss Carter, Chief Rowan began forcing her voice into neutrality. "We are trying to verify what happened at Brookside Bank. There is nothing to verify." Marsh interrupted, smugness dripping from every word. "The evidence is clear. If someone tries to scam a bank, the arrest is justified." He crossed his arms as if her fate had already been sealed. Lauren looked directly at him, her gaze steady and blade sharp. "Are you sure you want to stand by that statement?" Rowan glanced sideways, sensing something unspoken. Slowly, Lauren opened her wallet, her personal items having been returned before interrogation. Her hands were still red and tender, but her movements were firm as she pulled out a gleaming metal credential. She lifted it to eye level, turning it so the overhead light reflected onto the deep engraved letters. Supervisory Special Agent, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Civil Rights and Financial Crimes Division. The reaction was instant. Valerie Rowan's face shifted from shock to pale disbelief in less than a second. She stood rooted to the floor as if crushed by a weight. Marsh, on the other hand, lost his smile entirely, his body jerking in a reflexive flinch. He stared at the badge as though it had transformed into a flame, burning through every layer of false confidence he had wrapped himself in. Lauren spoke each word, striking the air like a nail driven into steel. "The fraud you claim to see is money disbursed from a federal whistleblower case. And I, the person you called a scammer, am the agent leading the investigation into the money laundering network directly tied to the very bank you are defending." Rowan inhaled sharply, as though the room had suddenly lost all its oxygen. "Wait, money laundering." Lauren nodded. "Brookside Bank has been on my watch list for more than 6 months. And this morning, when Dana Whitmore escalated over that check, I happened to see an internal transaction slip that perfectly matches a sequence of codes from the dirty finance network we have been tracking. Your officer's overzealous behavior unintentionally revealed who benefits from her panic." Marsh's eyes darted from Rowan to the door, then back to Lauren. He tried to regain composure, but his voice no longer carried the same balance. "There is no evidence proving, oh, there is." Lauren cut in, her tone softer than usual, but sharper than a scalpel. "I memorized every number on the slip that fell from the envelope. And I am very certain we have enough authority to request a search warrant for Brookside Bank before the day ends." Rowan clenched her fists. Marsh, do you understand how serious this is? Marsh tried to appear calm. This is just a misunderstanding. We can correct it. We, Lauren, stepped closer. Do not. My definition of misunderstanding is different from yours. What you did this morning was not a procedural error. You shielded a criminal operation far bigger than all of you combined. And I am putting every detail into my report. The room fell silent, the kind of silence that carries the weight of something about to crumble. Rowan opened her mouth as if to speak, but no words came. Marsh looked around as though searching for an escape route, but none existed. Lauren stood exactly as she was needing no bravado, because the truth itself was her strength. And in that moment, she knew with absolute clarity the battle was not just beginning. It had shifted from the shadows into the light, where the real power belongs to the one willing to expose the truth. The light inside the holding room had not changed, but the air had. It felt heavier, slower, as if the entire space were waiting to see who would break first. Marsh stood frozen, his jaw clenched tight while Chief Valerie Rowan braced herself against the table as though she needed the support just to stay upright. The fragments of truth had slammed together too fast and too violently, shaking the foundation of the system they thought they understood. Lauren slid her badge back into her wallet, the motion slow, but carrying more force than any punch could. I want to leave this room. Now. Her voice was not loud, yet the air itself seemed to tremble around it. Rowan swallowed hard and nodded on instinct. Release her. Dalton appeared in the hallway just in time to hear that. He stopped cold as if someone had thrown ice water in his face. Release. He looked at Kramer, then at Lauren. Confusion and anger clashing in his eyes. Chief She, Miss Carter Rowan, cut in as a federal agent. Dalton's mouth opened, but no sound came out. His expression shifted from defiant to stunned to something that looked dangerously close to fear, though he tried to hide it. Kramer stood rigid, but the confidence in his eyes had shattered into thousands of pieces. Lauren looked at them the way someone examines two living case files. Men who thought the system would always shield them, now realizing that this time the system belonged to the person they had chosen to mistreat. The door opened, leading them into the main workspace of the station. The clatter of keyboards, the thump of footsteps, the soft tap of coffee cups against desks, all the everyday noise faded as Lauren walked through. Not because they knew she was an agent. They did not. But everyone felt it, as if the scent of injustice being exposed had just drifted through the room. Officer Jordan Hale stood near the front desk. The moment he saw Lauren walking freely without cuffs, he understood something bigger was unfolding. Are you all right? Lauren met his eyes, letting her expression soften slightly. Thank you for your hesitation earlier. It shows you still have a conscience. Jordan tightened his lips. I have seen people get railroaded before, but the way they treated you, I knew something was wrong. Dalton stood behind them, face burning with anger, but under Rowan's glare, he did not dare speak a word. Lauren stepped to the property desk. Diane, the clerk, who had stayed silent until now, looked at her with an apologetic heaviness. I am sorry about everything that happened. Lauren gave her a small nod, then lifted her gaze toward Marsh, who was still struggling to steady his breath. Assistant District Attorney Marsh, she said I will need a formal meeting with your office, and I will require all records related to Brookside Bank for the last 12 months. Marsh forced a crooked smile. You have the authority, but I must warn you procedures take time. You "Will not have time," Lauren replied. "Because the moment I leave this building, I will be contacting federal oversight. Any delay will be considered obstruction." Kramer stepped back half a pace. Dalton swallowed down a curse that nearly escaped. Rowan exhaled long and slow. "If what you say is true, we are sitting on a very serious scandal." Lauren turned to her eyes, sharp as a steel needle but not hostile. "I did not come here to destroy your department, Chief Rowan, but I will not let two officers abuse their authority without consequences. And I certainly will not let a money-laundering network operate under our noses for one more day." Her words seemed to reset the entire room. Officers paused in their tasks, watching with a mixture of awe and unease. Lauren could feel their eyes on her, but she stood firm. Jordan stepped forward, voice low. "Agent Carter, is there anything I can do?" Lauren faced him. "Tell me honestly, did anyone else know they planned to falsify the report?" Jordan hesitated for a single second, then answered. "I heard them discussing adding extra details to justify the arrest." He shot a furious but controlled glance at Dalton. "I did not agree with it, but they are senior officers." Lauren placed a hand on his shoulder, gentle but unwavering. "Right and wrong is never dependent on seniority. It depends on courage." Jordan nodded his expression, shifting into something resolute. Lauren turned toward Marsh, who now stood like a cracked statue. "You should start preparing your statement, because I can promise you no one in this room will be able to cover for you anymore." In that moment, Lauren felt the shift of power in the air. Not the power of guns or handcuffs, the power of truth when placed in the hands of someone unafraid of the dark. She walked out the front doors of the station. The cold afternoon wind caught a strand of her hair. The pain in her wrists remained, but it did not pull her down. It pushed her taller. Outside, the world was still bright, loud, alive, and Lauren knew the battle had just turned a page with only one possible ending, the truth becoming the hunter, and every person hiding in the shadows, realizing they would not have time to run. The afternoon drifted by beneath a pale sunlight that fell over the streets like a layer of worn, golden dust. Lauren drove home in silence, the steady hum of the engine matching the rhythm of a heartbeat, trying not to burst after a day filled with blows she had not seen coming. But inside her, another current was rising. Not fear, but the razor-sharp clarity of someone who had just glimpsed a network far darker than she ever imagined. When she pulled into her mother's driveway, Evelyn Carter opened the door before Lauren even reached it. She pulled her inside, her eyes full of worry, but without panic. She had lived long enough to know when her daughter was simply tired and when she had walked out of a real storm. "Lauren, what happened? Are you hurt?" Evelyn's fingers brushed the bruises blooming across her daughter's wrists, and her face darkened. "I am all right, Mom," Lauren said quietly but with strength beneath every word. "I need Avery and Pastor Linda here right now." Evelyn did not ask another question. She only nodded, poured coffee, and began preparing the kitchen like it was the family's old war room, the place where they had once gathered to fight injustices far smaller than this. Lauren sat inhaling deeply, piecing together the chain of events in her mind. The front door swung open. Avery Kim rushed in so fast, she nearly slipped on the rug. Her hair was messy, her eyes puffy from lack of sleep, and her laptop screen was still glowing in her hands. "I got here as fast as I could. What happened? I saw the video of you in handcuffs." "Oh God, Lauren, what did they do to you?" Lauren answered with a single sentence that froze Avery in place. Avery Brookside Bank really is part of the laundering network. The room seemed to drop a floor as if the ceiling itself had collapsed. Avery blinked twice. You need to explain that right now. Before Lauren could speak, Pastor Linda Monroe stepped inside. She wore a long purple coat, and the gentle expression she carried in church was replaced by a quiet storm. I watched the whole bank video. Lauren, you need to tell us everything. Lauren recounted it all from the beginning. The transaction slip that fell from the envelope, the codes matching the exact sequence she and Avery had tracked for months. Dana Whitmore's panicked reaction, the suspicious urgency of Assistant District Attorney Marsh when he arrived at the station, and the way Officers Dalton and Kramer fabricated their report like men who had spent their whole careers doing exactly that. Avery's expression shifted from exhaustion to a cold, focused alertness. That slip, you are sure it was the same sequence, the first 3 letters. The next 6 numbers. Every symbol, Lauren said softly. I never forget those things. Avery opened her laptop on the table. All right. I am pulling every transaction tied to that sequence for the past 12 months. If Brookside is inside this network, the system will show it. Pastor Linda crossed her arms, her eyes sharp as a hammer. I have seen a lot of discrimination in my life, but this is different. This is not just bias. This is structure, cover-up, collaboration. Evelyn set a cup of coffee in front of each of them, then opened a wooden box from the cabinet, placing it on the table with a reverence she rarely showed. These are all the documents your father kept from the 1980s. He investigated Brookside, back when it had a different name. Loan denials, complaint letters, red-lined maps, it is all in here. Lauren opened the lid. A thin layer of dust rose like a sigh from the past. She lifted the first page, a letter from 1987 documenting the unexplained denial of a loan to a black-owned business. The next page held a red-lining map circling black neighborhoods under the label High Credit Risk. Oh my God, Avery whispered. They have been doing this for decades. Lauren narrowed her eyes. And now they are laundering money under the disguise of fake charitable foundations. Pastor Linda pressed her hands against the table, her voice deep and steady. If you are truly up against this system, you need to move fast. Strike hard and stay precise. They will not sit still, Lauren. They will try to silence you. The front window rattled. Lauren turned instantly. A black SUV was parked across the street. No headlights, no front license plate. A chill slid down Avery's spine. Lauren, someone is watching. Lauren stood straight, her eyes gleaming with a cold edge even her mother rarely saw. Good. Let them watch. Let them think they have the upper hand. She stepped closer to the window, pulling the curtain just enough to see the SUV clearly. They want to intimidate us, Lauren said, her voice low, controlled, and unsettlingly calm. Then good. They just confirmed they are hiding something so big it terrifies them. Pastor Linda placed a firm hand on Lauren's shoulder. Child, the night is coming. But you remember this, the darker the night, the brighter the light shines. And I am here with you. Lauren did not take her eyes off the SUV. It is fine. Let them follow. The more they watch, the sooner they will slip. Evelyn looked at her daughter, her heart caught between pride and fear. Lauren, what do you plan to do next? Lauren turned back, her eyes burning with the resolve of someone fully aware she was walking straight into the center of a violent storm. I plan to turn this entire city upside down. Avery had been awake all night. Lauren knew it the moment she stepped into her small apartment the next morning. The curtains were still open, letting in a faint gray light that fell across a cluttered work table, scattered notes, printed transaction logs, and 2 laptops open at once, both overflowing with data windows. The air smelled of strong coffee mixed with the tension hanging heavy in the room. "You have been working since last night?" Lauren asked. Avery did not look up. Her voice was urgent. "I found it. Lauren, you need to see this." She turned her main laptop around. A massive spreadsheet filled the screen, rows of transactions, stretching endlessly, color-coded into repeating cycles. Every 3 weeks, the same pattern appeared: clusters of checks, just under $9,000, small enough to avoid mandatory reporting, regular enough to scream suspicion. Lauren stood behind her, scanning the numbers with the experienced dread of someone who understood exactly what she was seeing. "This money flow, all of it goes through Brookside. Not just Brookside." Avery enlarged a secondary chart. "There are 6 charity organizations tied to veteran services, but none have real offices. No staff, no activity." She pointed at a cell. "And the person listed as treasurer for 3 of those organizations is Dana Whitmore." Lauren closed her eyes briefly, not because she was surprised, but because the picture was finally coming into focus with brutal clarity. Avery continued, "And there is more. I traced the business registrations backward. Every one of them is linked to the same office building. Owned by Marsh Financial Holdings." Lauren's eyes snapped open. "Ethan Marsh." Avery nodded hard. "Yes, his family. This is a layered laundering system. Marsh provides the legal cover. Dana moves the money, and officers Dalton and Kramer, they are likely protecting the operation by manipulating reports." Lauren felt a coldness flood through her. Not fear, but the chill that comes when truth crystallizes into something undeniable. Avery turned toward her. "Lauren, this is no longer a case. This is a network rotting an entire system." Lauren leaned on the table. "How certain are you?" Avery answered without a word. She opened a code log revealing an IP address, then a local network map, then a file access trail from midnight. The fake video Marsh leaked to the press, Avery said, her voice metallic, was uploaded from inside the ADA office, backup server room number 35. Lauren exhaled slowly. They manufactured a video, altered the camera data, adjusted timestamps. Avery nodded. "And I have the full metadata." In that moment, Lauren felt the whole room shift toward them. The evidence was no longer scattered fragments. It was a weapon. Avery's voice dropped, trembling slightly with the weight of what she understood. "Lauren, we are holding something that could burn down Marsh's career, expose Dana, and dismantle their entire laundering network." But Lauren finished the sentence for her. "It also means they will not leave us alone." Avery turned back to the screen. "There is one more thing. I tracked account movement from one of the shell charities. Half an hour ago, a large withdrawal. The money moved through 5 accounts and then vanished." Lauren straightened. "They are clearing their tracks." "Yes," Avery said, "and fast. Too fast for it to be anything other than someone inside panicking." Lauren gripped the edge of the table. "Then we move now. Before they erase everything." Avery had been waiting for that. She pulled out a sheet of notes and handed it to Lauren. "I prepared the draft for a search warrant. Judge Rebecca Morales is the only one not inside Marsh's network. If we file it this morning, the chances of approval are very high." Lauren took the paper. The ink was fresh, the rationale flawless, every line crafted with precision. A wave of quiet gratitude passed through her. Avery looked at her, her voice soft but firm. "I am not letting you fight this alone." Lauren rested a hand on her shoulder. "Thank you. But from this moment on, you need to be extremely careful. Because for all we know, when they followed you last night, when they grabbed your bag, it was not to steal anything. It was to see how far you had gotten." Avery shivered. "I know. I changed the locks. But Lauren, I am scared." Lauren did not look away. "So am I. A little. But I am more afraid of what happens if we do nothing." They held each other's gaze for a long moment, two pieces of the same plan locking into place. Lauren walked to the window and looked down at the empty street. No SUV today. That was not a sign of safety. It was the silence of an enemy preparing something worse. "We are going to see Judge Morales," Lauren said. "And after that, we start the real counterattack." No one in the room objected, because they all understood the battle lines were drawn, and from this moment forward, hesitation was no longer an option. Judge Rebecca Morales's office always carried a kind of authority that was difficult to describe. It was not the framed courtroom sketches on the walls or the shelves lined with legal volumes, but the presence of the woman seated behind the large wooden desk. Morales was not the type of judge to be swayed. She was sharp pragmatic, and most importantly, loyal to no political circle. Lauren knew this, and that was why this office was the only place where she could request a search warrant without fear of interference or delay. She and Avery entered after the judicial assistant announced them. Judge Morales looked up immediately, her eyes moving straight to Lauren's bruised wrists, the deep blue and purple marks stretching almost to the bone. Her brow tightened. She did not ask about it, but her expression made clear she understood more than she was letting on. "Agent, excuse me?" Miss Carter Morales corrected herself swiftly. "I heard something happened to you yesterday morning." Lauren sat upright. "Your Honor, that incident is directly tied to why I am here today and to a federal-level money laundering network." Morales set her pen down. "I am listening." Avery opened her laptop, her fingers flying over the keys as if her mind were running faster than the screen. "Your Honor, we traced a pattern of suspicious transactions spanning many months. Every one of them falls below the mandatory reporting threshold. Every one of them goes through Brookside Community Bank." Lauren placed the slip of paper Diane had unknowingly left inside the envelope the day before the slip that had become a spear aimed directly at the wall Brookside had spent years constructing. "This transaction code fell from my deposit envelope while they were inventorying my belongings. It matches the data sequence tied to the laundering ring Avery and I have been tracking for more than half a year." Morales examined the slip. "You are certain?" "As certain as I am of my own name," Lauren replied, firm but never arrogant. Avery switched to another data set. "These are 6 fraudulent charities, no offices, no staff, no real work performed, but all receive steady transfers from Brookside." Lauren added, "The registered treasurer for 3 of these charities is Dana Whitmore, the branch manager who called the police on me while I was depositing a legitimate check." Morales's expression hardened. "I see." And Ada Marsh Avery opened a metadata file. The fabricated video was uploaded from the ADA office server. We traced it to a backup machine in room number 35. Judge Morales leaned back in her chair. A long moment passed, heavy as a courtroom verdict. Finally, she tapped 2 fingers on the desk. "It appears you have placed an entire city-level criminal enterprise in front of me. If I do not grant this warrant, I become part of that silence." Lauren met her gaze. "This network has been running for years. If we do not act now, they will destroy the evidence before sunset." Morales reached for her pen. The sound of her signature slicing across the page was as sharp as a blade cutting through rope. She handed Lauren the stamped file. "Miss Carter, you now have authorization to search all transaction systems, offices, servers, books, and assets tied to Brookside Community Bank, including the associated charities." Avery held her breath. Lauren took the warrant, gripping it tightly. "Thank you, Your Honor." Morales stood and stepped closer. "Let me give you advice. If Ada Marsh is involved in this, he will not stay quiet. He will strike back. Possibly tonight," Lauren answered without blinking. "I am ready." As they stepped out of the courthouse, Avery could not hide the mix of excitement and fear in her voice. "We have the warrant." "Lauren, this is huge. Truly huge." Lauren looked up at the pale blue sky, sensing the storm gathering behind the clouds. "Avery, the storm is not here because we went looking for it. It is here because we turned on the lights." They walked toward the parking lot, but Lauren suddenly stopped. "Avery, what? Keep your head down. Do not look up." Avery tensed, but obeyed. A black SUV, identical to the one from the night before, sat a short distance away. The windshield was so dark it was impossible to see inside. The engine was running, but the vehicle did not move. Lauren's voice dropped to a whisper, steady as a blade sliding into place. "They know what we have." The SUV rolled forward, very slowly, like a warning. Then it accelerated and vanished down the street. Avery exhaled sharply. "They are watching every step we make." Lauren opened the car door, her expression unchanged. "And the more they watch, the more traces they leave behind." Avery climbed into the passenger seat, where now Lauren started the engine. Her voice was low, sharp, final, like the beginning of a battle order. "To Brookside Bank. It is time we knock on their door." Brookside Community Bank rose at the end of the street like a block of concrete pretending to be calm. But Lauren knew that beneath its polished marble shell lay a machine powered by dirty money and fear. The noon sunlight glinted across the glass facade, reflecting the image of her and Avery stepping out of the car, not loud, not dramatic, but carrying the one thing that could make any building tremble a federal search warrant. The glass door slid open as they approached. No greetings, no smiles. The only thing Lauren felt was tension stretched so tight it could snap with the slightest touch. Some employees had already heard she was back. They said nothing, only watched with eyes full of curiosity, fear, and the dawning realization that something catastrophic was about to unfold. Dana Whitmore stood in the center of the lobby, her face paler than usual, though she tried to maintain her usual polished arrogance. Her blazer was crisp, her lipstick flawless, her eyes as hard as glass. But underneath, Lauren saw the tremor of panic. "Miss Carter," Dana said, her voice thinner than usual. "I did not expect you to return today. The matter with the check yesterday is being resolved." Lauren did not answer. Instead, she lifted the paper with the red federal seal, holding it where Dana could not avoid it. "Brookside Community Bank is under federal search order, effective immediately." Dana's face froze. Her lips tightened until they turned white. "What? This is absurd!" Avery stepped forward, her voice calm but razor-sharp. "Nothing about this is absurd. We have evidence of suspicious transactions, money laundering, shell charities, and attempts to destroy evidence." The employees around them stiffened, some standing, some stepping back like people realizing they were standing at the epicenter of an earthquake. Dana inhaled sharply. "I do not allow you are not allowed to do anything." Lauren said, her voice low but powerful enough to silence the entire room. Miss Whitmore, every electronic device in this bank is now subject to seizure. Servers, books, camera systems. And I suggest you cooperate because the ADA office will not protect you. Dana flinched. Hearing that name told her Lauren was right. Ethan Marsh was not here today. He was hiding in his office, whether frightened or planning, she did not care. Lauren cared only about the truth, and today, the truth stood with her. 2 FBI tech agents stepped in behind Lauren. They quietly opened their equipment cases, connecting cables, pulling data, locking down the bank's systems. Avery moved swiftly, opening her laptop, accessing local storage, checking for traces of deletion. Lauren focused on Dana. Do you know what made me suspicious? Not your attitude at the counter. It was the internal slip that fell from my envelope. It could not have been there unless you or someone working with you put it there. Dana swallowed hard, her eyes darting left, then right. Lauren continued. And that slip matches the transaction sequence I have been tracking for 6 months. The same sequence used to launder money through the fake charities where you are listed as treasurer. Dana stepped back. You do not understand. I was just following instructions. I am not the one in charge. Lauren tilted her head, studying her the way someone studies a crack spreading across stone. I know. And that is why I am giving you a chance. Dana's eyes widened, stunned. Lauren spoke again, each word clear as steel. Tell me everything about Ethan Marsh. Now. The room thickened. A printer beeped unexpectedly in the background, its sound out of place in the suffocating silence. Dana broke. Not loudly, but in the way someone collapses after holding too much for too long. Tears gathered and fell silently. Marsh forced me. He said if I did not help, he would get me fired. Then he offered money. A lot. So much that Her voice shook. He said the police would protect us, that the entire city belonged to him. Lauren looked at her without pity, but with calculation. One question matters, she said. What else has Marsh prepared to hide the network? Dana drew a hard breath like someone bracing to reveal the detail that could shift the entire battlefield. He said, if anyone started investigating, there would be an emergency package, a folder with fake data. He planned to blame someone else, a bank employee or even you. He said it was to protect himself. Lauren felt a chill. Not fear of Marsh, but the recognition of a man who had no limits and no conscience. She had seen this type many times, men who believed they were untouchable. Avery hurried over. Lauren. You need to see this. Lauren turned. On Avery's laptop, real-time system logs scrolled fast. Someone was remotely trying to erase massive amounts of data. Avery said quickly, someone at the ADA office is wiping everything. Lauren closed her eyes for one steady second, then opened them with the look of someone deciding another person's fate. Avery. Stop it. I am blocking it. But to shut it down completely, we need direct access to the ADA server. Lauren turned to Dana. Does Marsh use a personal password? Dana nodded, voice trembling. Yes, and I know it. Lauren inhaled deeply. The entire scene seemed to shift into a new phase. Avery, get the car. Where are we going? The ADA office, a bank employee whispered in disbelief. You are going to confront Marsh right now. Lauren looked toward the glass doors where the sunlight cut across the floor like a blade. No, I am not confronting him. She stepped forward, pushing the doors open. I am ending this. When we look back at everything Lauren has endured, we understand that justice never appears on its own. It requires people strong enough to stand in the heart of the storm, brave enough to expose the truth, even when darkness has seeped deep into the system. This is not just a story about a questioned check or a wrongful arrest. It is a reminder that true power lies in intelligence, resilience, and unwavering courage in the face of injustice. If you believe stories that uncover the truth deserve to keep being told, make sure to like and subscribe so you will not miss the next journey. And before you leave this video, leave a short comment of just 3 words, a shared reminder of what we stand for. Protect the truth.